On a stormy, cloudy day in the dark, dense forest, there was a wooden house that stood alone on top of the mountain. Inside the house, two old witches anxiously stood by the bed of a pregnant woman. The third witch stood outside the window, keeping watch because, in the distance, an evil force was rushing toward them. The pregnant woman was also a witch, but the child she carried inside her was the offspring of the arrogant Lord of the Dark. He was madly rushing toward the house, intending to take back his wife and son. The eldest sister began to mutter a spell. Immediately, a green magical barrier surrounded the wooden house. The Lord of the Dark also emitted red magic, symbolizing his impatience and anger. He knew better than anyone that the child his wife carried inside her would bring her more danger than good. Indeed, after a heart-wrenching scream from the pregnant woman, the baby was born, but she did not survive. The Lord of the Dark in the forest seemed to feel the loss of his loved one. His rage exploded, sending a powerful force toward the house. The three witches immediately cast a counterspell to block the attack from the Lord of the Dark. The three witches turned from old and haggard to beautiful, because they had just transferred their strength to their youngest sister to keep her alive. But she still didn't survive. Therefore, the power returned to the eldest sister. The Lord of the Dark wanted to take his son back, but the three witches did not agree. They wanted to let the child grow freely, and after maturing, he would choose his own path, either to become a witch or to become the Lord of the Dark. Hundreds of years passed, and the child who was once born now looked over 100 years old, but he still appeared as a youthful 25-year-old, radiating youth. His father hoped he would succeed him as the Lord of the Dark, while his three aunts wished for him to become the supreme witch, ruling the forest. However, he eventually became a con artist. Back in ancient times, when things were still backward, the villagers saw Harlan living from one generation to the next. Their ancestors passed away, but he still lived on, and they were not surprised, even revering him as the Dark Envoy, a nickname for the righteous vampire envoy. Whenever someone died in the village, the villagers would pay a large sum to invite Harlan to the cemetery, where he would help the soul of the deceased find peace or prevent them from becoming an evil vampire tainted by dark power. In fact, Harlan didn't know his true identity, nor did he have any special powers. But seeing that he lived so long and could make a lot of money from this, he wasn't shy about becoming a con artist. Plus, there was no such thing as the dead turning into vampires. After each of Harlan's ceremonies, when he saw the deceased lying peacefully, the villagers trusted him more. Harlan had a young assistant who always accompanied him, boosting his credibility. And of course, the assistant knew well that Harlan was just a con artist who lived long, and the two would split the earnings. Until that day, a group of soldiers led by a general named Kerjak received orders to retake the town that had been swept through by the enemy. Coincidentally, this town was located near the village where Harlan lived. Kerjak's team realized that all the bodies in the town were dried out, as if their blood had been drained. Even a sacred place like the church had become a place where no light could penetrate. It could be concluded that the deaths of the villagers were not caused by enemy gunfire. Suddenly, an old frail man appeared outside, the only survivor in the village. The old man approached. Kerjak firmly stated that the villagers did not die due to war, but because vampires drained their blood dry. One of the soldiers suddenly fired, killing the old man, thinking he was talking nonsense. Kerjak was furious, but as a warrior, he clearly didn't believe in vampires. However, when all the villagers had died and the enemy had long since withdrawn, Kerjak contacted headquarters to request permission for his team to retreat. But headquarters insisted that his team stay until reinforcements arrived. Although Kerjak did not believe in vampires, staying in this place made the entire team uneasy due to the overwhelming smell of death. That night, two guards at the camp spotted a mysterious girl. At first, she appeared to be asking for help, but then she revealed a dangerous smile and attacked the soldiers. It turned out that the girl was part of a vampire clan, beings with extraordinary strength who were immune to gunfire. After one soldier was killed, the blonde young man confirmed that vampires were responsible. He, a neighbor of Harlan, believed that Harlan could help their team, so he took him to meet Kerjak. Kerjak didn't believe in vampires and forced Harlan to experience it firsthand to prove it. After being dragged into the church, Harlan discovered the existence of vampires when he was attacked and realized that his blood could cause them to decompose. With this strange power, Harlan fought back and made the vampires retreat. However, the Lord of the Dark, witnessing the event, ordered his vampire army to retreat, leaving the girl behind to investigate Harlan. After Harlan killed a vampire, Kerjak wanted to understand more about Harlan, but they still didn't know his true identity. Kerjak took his soldiers to the church where the vampire girl Tesla was hiding. She revealed that Harlan carried the bloodline of another Lord of the Dark, which made her master want to destroy Harlan. Meanwhile, Kerjak's soldiers encountered the Lord of the Dark and were killed, which caused confusion. Determined to save his assistant, Harlan asked Tesla to guide him to the Lord of the Dark. Kerjak and Tesla, despite their enmity, continued to cooperate. On the way, Kerjak shared the tragic loss of his family. When they reached the Lord of the Dark's castle, Harlan and Kerjak witnessed a soldier being transformed into a vampire after drinking the Lord's blood. Kerjak and Harlan prepared to face the danger ahead, while Harlan used his blood to create bullets that could harm vampires. However, Kerjak did not trust Tesla, and she became angry at the disrespect she received. Harlan gave Tesla a dagger containing his blood for protection when entering the Lord of the Dark's lair. The Lord of the Dark's stronghold was a chaotic and impoverished town. Attacks and casualties happened frequently. Tesla and Kerjak seemed to be used to this scene, as all three entered the tunnel leading to the old library. Tesla told everyone to stop because she sensed the Lord of the Dark's hounds approaching. Sure enough, shortly afterward, a group of transformed soldiers appeared. Their ammunition pushed Harlan and Kerjak back. Although they were once comrades, when it came time to shoot them, Kerjak had to make a very difficult decision. The blood-infused bullets from Harlan truly proved to be highly effective. Any vampire who was struck by one of these special bullets would immediately catch fire. However, the blonde young man closed in and threw Harlan's gun far away, forcing him to engage in hand-to-hand combat with him. While the two men fought fiercely, Tesla could only hide to one side, trembling. It wasn't that she didn't want to help, but because she was still under the control of the Lord of the Dark. The two human men had taken down an entire mutated vampire army. But at that moment, Tesla, with her dark eyes, stepped forward and aimed her gun at Harlan. She was being controlled by the Lord of the Dark. Harlan knew this, so he encouraged Tesla to stand up and fight against the Lord of the Dark. The Lord of the Dark could control her because she allowed him into her mind. However, Tesla, after such a long time as a slave, now felt too scared to resist. She shot at Harlan and, terrified, ran away. That night, Kerjak stayed by Harlan's side, tending to his wound. Kerjak asked Harlan if he wanted to continue this fight. Both of them were lonely, having lost all their loved ones. So they knew that this battle had to continue if they were to find meaning in their lives. On the other side, Tesla actually wanted to resist, but she hadn't found the opportunity yet. Later that night, the Lord of the Dark's children went out to hunt. They targeted a lost girl. As they were about to devour her, Tesla appeared, stabbing them one by one. This was her first step in fighting against the Lord of the Dark. This action immediately summoned the Lord of the Dark. He became excited as he could smell the fear radiating from Tesla. Tesla held the dagger with Harlan's blood in her hand and charged toward her master. However, she'd forgotten that he was not a vampire, but another Lord of the Dark, like Harlan. Tesla failed again and was forced to submit to the Lord of the Dark. Back with Harlan, his wound had healed quickly. This unprecedented healing ability indicated that his body was slowly being transformed. Harlan and Kerjak were ready to enter the old library, each heading in a different direction to hunt the Lord of the Dark. But even so, this was a tiger's den, and the rules were set by the Lord of the Dark. He blew into Kerjak's head, and the voice of his daughter shattered his heart once more. The illusion of his daughter made Kerjak collapse. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself tied up in the same place as Tesla. A puppet of the Lord of the Dark appeared, spitting fire on Tesla's wound, causing her great pain. Kerjak, who usually liked to provoke Tesla, was now furious and desperately struggled. This puppet was also a soldier under Kerjak's command. He had no talent but was obsessed with becoming a leader, so he had always hated following Kerjak's orders. Tesla noticed the pulley above and devised a plan. Kerjak seemed to understand her intentions, and he purposely provoked the puppet. Tesla jumped up, and just as the puppet swung its hand to cut the chains next to Kerjak, she made her move. Once she broke free, the first thing Tesla did was strangle the puppet. The puppet was quickly burned by Kerjak's flame. With this finished, it seemed that Kerjak and Tesla had reconciled. Seeing that her strength was exhausted, Kerjak even willingly offered his blood for her to drink. Turning back to Harlan, he kept walking and eventually reached the throne of the Lord of the Dark. The Lord had been waiting for him for a long time. Inside him flowed the blood of his father, the sworn enemy of the Lord. In the world of the Lord of the Dark, Harlan was still a child, having not yet gone through this stage of maturity. Thus, his power could not contend with the elderly Lord of the Dark. The Lord then revealed that many centuries ago, his father had dared to love a foreign witch, which led the Lord to banish him from the Dark Lord's world. Unexpectedly, his father had left behind the seed of disaster, which was Harlan. In the Lord's world, he didn't want to kill Harlan immediately, but instead made him face a difficult choice, one that involved confronting his assistant, who had now been transformed into a vampire. The assistant's soul had become a slave to the Lord of the Dark, listening to his commands. If they fought, the boy would be ready to harm Harlan. Therefore, the only thing Harlan could do for the boy now was to help him be freed. Harlan finally made the difficult decision to send his friend away. Losing his young assistant caused Harlan immense pain, leaving him dizzy and falling to the ground. At this moment, Kerjak and Tesla appeared, but their presence only made the Lord of the Dark even angrier. Before they could do anything, the Lord of the Dark's power easily sealed both of them, pinning them to the wall. The Lord of the Dark did not want to give Harlan the chance to resist. Harlan, in a state of clinical death, was led to a crossroads of choice in his subconscious. The three witch ants had been waiting for him, but he ignored them, turning away to head toward his father's land. In fact, his father was not defeated by the Lord of the Dark, but because he didn't want to interfere in Harlan's life. He believed that when the time was right, Harlan would return to him to make a choice. True to his father's expectations, Harlan chose to become the Lord of the Dark. Thus, his father also gave him the strength that he deserved to inherit. Therefore, Harlan was resurrected in the real world. The subconscious experience he just had was the transformation phase of a Dark Lord. In this resurrection, Harlan officially became a Dark Lord, but notably, he carried the powers of the Supreme Witches within him. So, despite still being an inexperienced Dark Lord, Harlan's strength still overwhelmed the elderly Dark Lord. He seemed to sense the overwhelming strength emanating from Harlan, but he was unwilling to accept defeat. So he used all his might to fight Harlan. However, in the end, he was reduced to ashes, turning into a pile of bones. The Lord of the Dark could do no more. After eliminating the lair of the vampire bloodsuckers, Harlan, Kerjak, and Tesla finally found safety and freedom. Looking at the book that recorded the history of the Dark Lords, Harlan realized that there were many Dark Lords like his father. Thus, from this moment on, the three-person alliance was officially formed, with the mission to eradicate the evil demons on this earth. The story ends here. Thank you for following along. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe to support my channel.